for some way, was not wanting to be in that mix anymore. Somehow, there was something going on in her life. There was something going on in that interaction with all of those people that should have been normal. It should have been right, but it wasn't. It was awkward for her. It was difficult for her. She had something to hide. She had something to be ashamed of. Her life was at a valley point, a pit point. And she says, you know what? I'm tired of the ridicule. I'm tired of what's going on at the watering hole. I'm going to wait till everyone has come and gone, and I'm going to go at noon each day. Because it just hurts too much to go with the rest of the ladies from the city, the rest of the ladies from the town, the rest of the ladies, because they know my stuff and I'm a source of what they talk about. And she says, if you can give me living water, I won't have to come back here each day. I won't have to come back here. I won't have to come and be a part of this ridicule. I won't have to come and have be subject anymore. Give me this living water so that I don't have to keep coming. And Jesus going, you're still not catching it. You're still not catching it. And Jesus at this point took the conversation up several levels. And he says, woman, go call your husband and have him come here. He started touching nerves in her life. Here's just the two of them at a place that Jesus shouldn't even really have been at. He had other opportunities to go a different way to get to where he needed to go. But in this course of this conversation, he starts engaging this woman and talking with this woman. And they start going back and forth about living water versus spiritual living versus fleshly water. And she's not catching him. And so he goes, woman, go call your husband. And he touched a sore spot in her life. You know, it's always interesting to me that we can talk about God knowing every element of our heart until he starts talking with us about every element of our heart. We like to have that verse in our pocket about everyone else. Well, God knows your heart. God knows what you're thinking. God knows where your challenges are, what your problems are. God knows your high points and your low points and everything. And we want to tell that to everybody. But there come those times where God begins dealing with us at our sensitive places. And he said, go call your husband. Let's make this a family affair. Let me tell you and your husband about living water. And shame came over the woman. A change, physically, a change came over the woman. And her answer was this. I have no husband, she replied. Jesus said to her, you're right when you said you have no husband. The fact is that you've had 5 husbands. And the man that you're now with, or the man that you now have, is not your husband. What you've said is quite true. Watch this. Jesus read her mail, folks. He read her mail. They were talking about water. She's in that conversation going, wait a second, what is going on back and forth? And bam, you know all my details. You know my history, my heart. You know what I've had challenges with. You know what I've had ups and downs and difficulties. And all of a sudden, he is totally, he's tuned in to my life. How is that? Jesus was taking the conversation up a notch. I believe with all of my heart that happens with each and every one of us. Oh, it may not be at a well, and it may not be, a situation just like hers, but at some point, God begins putting, watch this, his finger on areas of our lives. And he knows all the details. He knows all the situations. But he wants to extract those things, to highlight those things, so that he can ultimately be the right solution to those things. And as we read back in John 3:16 and 17, he didn't come to condemn her. You didn't hear condemnation in his voice when he said, you're right, you've had 5 husbands. You didn't hear condemnation. What you heard was him opening up the door through her challenges in life so that he could now bring healing to those places in her life. Oh, there's more. Is this making sense so far? Say amen. Here we go. We got more. Watch this. Watch this. And watch this. Give me this water so that I don't have to keep coming here. It's embarrassing for me to keep coming here. It was a sensitive area in her life. Now watch this. And this happens all the time. This is funny. Watch the next verse. Watch the next verse in verse 19. Sir, the woman said, I can see that you're a prophet. She got all spiritual all of a sudden. And it happens, look, I'm a minister, and you know, there are folks who I go do business with in the city. I go see them here and there and stuff, and it's really interesting. You can walk into a place of business sometimes and just be an average Joe or just look like an average Joe, and you go in there and do business and things, and maybe the person is, you know, swearing like a sailor or, you know, doing, you know, whatever it is, and you're just kind of, you know, dealing with it and stuff, and then you find that somehow in the conversation it comes up, oh, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm pastor of a church, and you hear, and it all changes. Like that, it changes. Oh, that's nice. You know how many times I'm told it's nice that I'm a preacher? That's nice. Oh, that's nice. Thank you. I'm glad it's nice for you. I like to call it a life calling. But anyway, it's nice. And then all of a sudden, people change it. It all changes. They're all spiritual. Well, bless God, brother. You know, here's your Slurpee. You pay for it, and they ask if they can pray for you all of a sudden or something like that. You just go, what changed? But she did the same thing. You know, he's trying to talk with her about spiritual matters. He's trying to get into those places. He's trying to do what God does great. And that's to touch us at our place of need when we need it. And he didn't have her talking the water back and forth. And so he talks about where her needs were. He talks about what was going on in her life. And she said, well, you know, hey, I can tell you're a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that the place where you must worship is in Jerusalem. All of a sudden, she now starts talking about worship. She now starts talking about what it means to be in God's presence and everything. And she acknowledged that her people worshiped one way and that his people, the Jews, worshiped another way. And I'm going to tell you this, no matter how she talked about worship, the fact is that she was not a worshiper herself. She was not someone who was in the practice of worshiping. She was distant from God. She was far removed from God. She was someone who knew enough about her history. She knew enough about her heritage. She knew enough about other folks and other racial histories. She knew enough to talk that way, but she was not a worshiper herself. And she is an amazing example. She paints an amazing picture of a huge group of people, a demographic of people that they might have been raised in church. They might have been, they know some stuff. Grandma might have sang in the choir, and all that stuff might be some way involved in their past, but it's just that. It's involved in their past. And they feel distant from God. And there will be people who go to Easter services all around this nation and even the world who maybe don't even honor a church the other 51 weeks of the year. But they know I'm kind of supposed to go on Easter. I'm kind of supposed to go buy a relatively pastel kind of outfit and look Easter style, and I'm supposed to do that, and I'll go and I'll be a noun worshiper. I'll go at the time it starts, and I'll leave at the time it ends. And God is saying, you know what? There's a worship available to each of us. There's a connection with God Himself available to each of us. And it happens in the heart of mankind. She said, I know where I'm supposed to worship, and I know where you're supposed to worship. She says, I have that under control. I get that. I kind of understand these things. And she brings up worship. And Jesus said back to her, believe me, woman, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know, and we worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. But watch this.